Morning, my name's Ray. I'm with Team S.T.E.A.M. This morning I'm walking away from Flash Industrial and spending the day outside waterproofing some garden beds. You guys feel like riding along for that? Now, what I mean by waterproofing garden beds is I'm going to take these particular garden beds that you see right here behind me, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 of them. And I'm going to line at least 3 sides of each one with aluminum, with used upcycled aluminum. And you may be wondering, where does a guy get all that excess aluminum? Well, the thing is, I paint semis, and on a number of the semis I paint, we end up removing the wings off of the sleepers, and I save them. I save each and every one of them. Today I'm going to be stripping the hardware off of a number of those sleeper wings so I can cut the remaining aluminum panels down to size and fit them inside, just inside of the edges of these garden beds. What you're looking at here is 8 of the 13 garden beds I intend to do. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to dig out, a couple inches down at least 3 sides of it. And I'm going to place those aluminum sheets once I get them cut out and fit for each specific location. Because some of them are only going to be, 6 inches deep, and some of them are going to be closer to 8 inches deep. Because this set of garden beds, each bed is level, but they're on the side of a slight incline. So the top sides are going to be narrower than the bottom sides. So once I get those cut, I'm going to take about 2 to 3 inches of soil out, just like with a pickaxe, and I'm going to slip those down inside of there and then backfill up next to them. Because water tends to run out from between these landscaping timbers, and it makes it tough for things that are planted within 6 inches of the edge to keep the amount of water near them that they need. The water tends to drain out, and they don't stay watered as long as they need to. And in this style of garden bed, it's not as big a deal because the ends are completely sealed up. Those are Peterbilt fenders, and they're completely sealed up. And we don't plant necessarily 6 inches from the edge on these big beds anyway. We have other plants for them, and we plant closer to the center. But on these beds, we'll plant all the way along the edge, all the way around each one of them. So I want to get at least 3 of the sides sealed up, and not all 4 sides on any of them, because I do want them to shed some of that water. I want them to be able to get rid of excess water. If we water heavily one day and then get an inch of rain that night, it's going to make a big difference having a little bit of drainage within these beds. And here's a couple of the more recent ones that I took off of a truck. They're not the most recent, but they're some of the more recent. And the only reason they're piled up here by themselves is because the rest of the pile was in a snowbank at the time that I had to find a place for them. So I just set them over here next to this pile of tin that I intend to upcycle. I keep spare everything. You see spare pallets and spare tin. And so I just put it over here for now, but I'll show you the actual pile of them. Okay, here's a few of them piled up here. Here's some mini garden beds that I made out of some decking that I got off when a guy tore his deck down and he was just going to throw all the materials away. We stripped all the decking off and kept it. And I've got a big pile of this decking that's still in 8 and 10 and 12 foot sheets, but I cut a bunch of them down to make these garden beds here. That's why they're here. And these are just here because, again, I couldn't get back to here because of all my spare fencing. I have welded wire fencing and some other truck parts, but that's the pile back there. And there's probably 8 or 10 of them in that pile. And then there's 3 or 4 of them here. Then there's another 3 or 4 of them here. And this is all because once I got that welded wire fencing in there, I couldn't get back in there that easily. So it's kind of a pig pen back here, but we're going to clean it all out because all these wings are getting ready to go today. And here's some fairings off of a 2001 Peterbilt. They're all fiberglass. I'll be using them for something, not sure what, but I save a lot of stuff. And then here's some Peterbilt fenders that I've amassed that will be turned into garden beds and other things. So the very next thing I'm going to do here this morning is dig all those wings out, get them up on some sawhorses, and start stripping the hardware off of them so I can start figuring out how I need to cut them to make them best fit my situation. All right, now I've gone over and I've gotten the first load on a garden cart. I'm getting ready to put them on the back of this trailer that we're getting ready to paint here in the very near future. But for now, it's just going to serve as a big work table. And I'm going to start taking all the hardware off of them. By hardware, I mean these rubber ends here, all of the L brackets, everything, all the handles, everything that bolts onto them. I'm going to try and turn them all into a flat piece of metal and then start taking my measurements and marking them onto them. Now here's the second load. There's 5 or 6 of them here. We're going to go ahead and put them up there and get them processed as well. All right, so then I had a third load that was just as big as that second load. Got it all broke down. You can see the result. I've got a big pile of handles here, some steel L brackets, a big pile of aluminum L brackets, a big pile of old sleeper wings, just the straight steel off of them, and then these smaller ones like you find on the Internationals. And I got a couple of the, you can see I've got all these, the tops of the wings, that fiberglass part. These are the ones that were undamaged. I had a few that were damaged. These are the ones that are still in good shape. And then a couple of the Kenworth ones. And so what I've done is I've taken a few of these and I've cut them in half down the middle. As you can see, I have 4 full length panels that have been cut lengthways down the middle. And then I have another 2 of them that I also cut in the middle this way. They're almost 30 inches here and they're almost 60 inches here. Together, end to end, one of these to the end of one of these is going to equal the inside length of the long side of one of those beds and the top side, the skinny side of one of those beds. So in other words, I have enough here to do 4 of the top sides of those beds. So I can do 4 of those beds on the skinny top side with just what I have here. Okay, and I've used this pickaxe with Evie's help. Hi, Evie. I've used this pickaxe and I've just dug just a tiny little trench along there. And you can see I've slipped one of them in there. I'm going to use this hammer to just tap it down into place and then backfill against it. And then I'm going to use this shorter one to go right here on the end. And now we've got the shorter one buried. You can see there's a little bit of a gap here, which is totally fine by me. We're not planting anything directly in the corners, and it's fine that these beds do have a little bit of drainage. I mean, if they had none whatsoever, you water them really well one day, and the next day you get an inch or 2 of rain, and then they're just waterlogged. So having these little gaps right here is going to work out pretty good for that. Now those top ones that I just did were all 6 inches wide. These bottom ones need to be closer to 8 inches wide. And so what I've done is I've taken the sleeper wings from the collection of Peterbilt's sleeper wings that I have, and I've gone ahead and bisected them or trisected them down into usable sections, and I'll show you what that looks like. There's one that I haven't cut at all, and here's one that I cut into usable sections. So it's almost it's the same one, probably off the same truck. But this is what it looks like. These are 7 3/4 wide, which is going to be easily wide enough to do what we got to do. We cut the little slanted parts off the top, and now I can use these so I can measure them out and use these sections as need be. And I'm going to go ahead and do that to all the rest of those sleeper wings, and I don't know how many there are. I never counted, probably a dozen. And now I've already done the downhill side of this bed, the length of it. I still have yet to do that end. I've done the uphill side, the downhill side, the uphill side, and as you can see, I'm working on the downhill side. The uphill side had the 6 inch wide ones. Those have 8 inch wide ones. And once I get those done, I'll do these 2 ends, and then I'll move to the other 2 beds that need it. And now I've already buried the other 3 of these beds that I'm working on. I've already buried the ends on the other 3. This is the very last one. And I've already got this pulled up with the pickaxe, and I'm just getting ready to tap it down into place and then backfill it. And this is the last of the 4 for the inside, smaller edges. And here it is, all pounded down into place. As you can see, it's about half the depth of this landscaping timber. That way it covers that crack and another crack. These are 8 inches wide. So they go down, they'll cover 3 full cracks in between. And here's the corner. You can see it matches up with this corner with just a little 1/2 inch gap in between, so it won't become waterlogged. Water does have a place to escape, just not at near the rate it was escaping. That way we can plant things close to this edge that are intended to go up the trellis, and they'll actually maintain their water. Now the other ends of this same bed, we're not going to do that with, because we're planting things like shallots and onions and some stuff that don't require as much water. But the things that I don't want all that much drainage on, that have to sit here and grow up these trellises, are all going to have this barrier put in. Here's one of our plum trees in full bloom. Look at all those pollinators. Tiny little bees, hundreds of them. Got some butterflies on it. This thing is just covered in pollinators. There's a butterfly. Now I'll take just a second here and go in the greenhouse and show you an alternative way. It's very cost effective to get seeds into seedlings. You see, there's one way for sure. Planting trays, little plastic planting trays, and we use them. And then of course you have to transplant them into bigger containers like we've done here. Many plants, hundreds of plants have been transferred into bigger containers. And that's a must unless you want them to get root bound and leggy and not healthy before they go outside. But another way to do it, where you can grow them from seed to fairly decent size all in one shot, is this. These are soil blocks. You can see they're all separate from each other. They've already got a little hole in them where you can drop a seed in. Once you've dropped the seed in, you just cover them up with a little bit of dirt, like these, and they're done. This is what you do it with. They're not very expensive. I don't remember what we gave for this one. We've had it for a number of years. But you can see it's got those little indentations or indentation makers in there. And you simply get your soil, get it somewhat moist like this. Then you pack it into here. You fill this up, pack it all in. Then you bring it over. You set it down. And you push them out, just like that. Row after row after row, you push them out. And they're condensed enough that they don't come apart, even when they're watered. And yet they're loose enough that roots can go ahead and spread out and do what they need to do. Then when it comes time to transplant them, you just simply put them right in the ground. You don't need to pull these out of a container because there is no container. You just put them right in the ground and you're done. And that's one way that we plant quite a few plants. These are a lot of food plants, a lot of squash, and some of our bigger food plants will go into these. And then you can, if you want, even go a step up from here into a bigger soil blocker. There's ones that have indentations this size that you can drop these into a bigger soil block. Soil blocks that are roughly this size. We don't have one. We haven't found enough of a use for one to get one, but this is a good way of planting when you don't have small planters or plastic planters or any of these sorts of containers, or you've run out of them. If you have one of these and some fairly damp soil, you can plant all day long. And that's just another way to get your garden going with minimal cost. Well, thanks for coming by and spending a few minutes in the garden. If you like this video, you should go ahead and like it because that's going to help me grow my channel. And if you like these sorts of videos, or auto body or domestic auto body or truck auto body or carpentry or art or any of the things we do around here, you should probably go ahead and subscribe because, you know, we always got something going on. We'll see you guys around.